back to the Iron Sharpens Iron podcast. We're at Discover Church in Chesapeake, Virginia. I'm Chris. This is Jesse. Joining our podcast team is Logan, our tech guy. Last week we talked about becoming godly husbands. This week we'll talk about building strong Christian friendships.
Absolutely. And the reason why we added Logan, just want to put this out there, he's a lot smarter than us with everything tech-wise, so
That's right.
we were smart to add him. So looking at our first topic that we wanted to talk about was spiritual leadership and mentorship. I believe that if you want to continue your spiritual journey, you have to get spiritual leadership and mentorship from somebody or from a group. That's what helps out the best. And one of the best verses that I found, which actually relates to our actual logo name, is actually Proverbs 27:17. And it says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." I think that signifies what a Christian friendship and a brotherhood should be. It should be us sharpening each other. Like, we should be making sure that we're doing the right thing, making sure that we're actually following God's word, and making sure that we are actually looking out for one another at the end of the day.
Yeah, as you were reading that, I was just thinking, reflecting on the topic of, if you look at Timothy in the New Testament, he was a young preacher in Ephesus, and Paul took him under his wing, and it wasn't though as if Paul was just teaching Timothy. He told Timothy, "Hey, I'm looking to receive more than just what I'm giving to you."
Absolutely.
Titus, it's the same thing. When you look back at Jesus and his disciples, it's no different.
Absolutely. I think one thing we should also look at is, I remember growing up, I heard the same thing, because I grew up in Tennessee, small town. A lot of people stayed in the same town, but I remember an old man telling me one day, was like, "Hey, show me your friends, and I'll show you where you'll be in 10 years. And that really hit me, and I was like, man, that's really good if you think about it, because I know whenever I was claiming I was a Christian and saying that, oh, my walk and my journey is actually going great, like, I wasn't surrounding myself with the right people. I wasn't surrounding myself with same-minded people. So I think that was really crippling my actual walk with my faith. I think that's something that, as Christian men, you have to be able to make sure that you surround yourself first. And then everyone's just going to keep on sharpening each other and make sure you guys are rising up at the same time.
Somebody's going to know something that you don't know.
100%. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
I mean, like somebody's going to...
Yeah. Someone knows a lot more than me, and I'm definitely more than willing to listen. And it's just perfect, because I think the same thing with me and you, because I remember first time we ever talked, and I told you, like, hey, my calling is in ministry. And you're like, awesome, man. Like, what can we do to help each other? Mm-hmm. Like, in the back of my head, I told you this as well. I was like, man, is this guy, like, trying to, like not let me succeed? Does he not want me to succeed? Does he think I'm, like, taking his job or something? But that was that mindset beforehand. And now I see it, and it's just, like, it's blossomed into so much more, like, into a podcast, into us, like, leading youth. So I think that's just us going back and forth, bouncing ideas off each other, talking about how we're doing personally, how we're talking about the struggles and everything. I think that's that mentorship that we're looking for, whether that's me to you or you to me, and then our pastor to us. It's just so much, and our elders to us as well. There's just so much that you can take from it.
Yeah, when you think about all the things that have brought us to the point that we're at right now, you look at it now, like you said in the last time we were here, and it really made me think about it. I was like, could you imagine 6 months ago saying, hey, you're going to be like a leader of, at the church, and you're going to be preaching out of the Bible?
You're gonna be preaching to 25 to 30 kids every Sunday.
It's an unbelievable thing, and it's not something that you go, well, it's an awesome accomplishment of mine. No, it's an awesome accomplishment of God working within.
Absolutely. It's not me doing this. It's not, oh, I'm doing this all by myself. It's no, God placed it in my heart, and now he's guiding me to be able to do everything that I can do, that I can serve. Because like we were talking about in the sermon, in your lesson today, was serving. Like, what is your purpose? Why do you serve? Like, you have gifts that God gave you, so use those. Mm-hmm. And I think, going back to what I said earlier, one of the best things that I learned about, one of the verses that I found for this actual topic was Proverbs 13:20. So looking at 13:20, it says, "Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm." And that hits home completely, because we know that everyone surround themselves with just people that just weren't good for them, that they were just the negativity, the actions they were doing. Like, and you'd be sitting there like, man, what am I doing? Like, and this is not to like shame on like the friends that you had beforehand. It's just now that your journey is different, and now that your walk in your faith is different, you see things a lot differently. You don't see it of the world now. You need to be in the Word and of God's Word, and then you're actually able to make the correct decisions from that.
This reminds me of what we just did a Bible study on James not too long ago.
Yeah.
In James, it talks about how if you lack wisdom, that you should ask God for it, and He will give it to you without reproach, without finding fault in you. But it's not a worldly wisdom. It's not a wisdom. It's a wisdom from God. It's not something that you can learn. It's something that God puts on your heart. And I think for the topic we're talking about, building friendships and getting a brotherhood, it's really something it's not something women and men typically do in each other.
Yeah.
Right? It's something that, particularly in men, I think men have a tougher time opening up.
Oh, 100%.
There's no secret in that.
But I think once you establish that trust and like that camaraderie, and that like, hey, these people aren't here to like to crap on me. Like, they're here to help me rise up and help me fix whatever's going on, or help me with whatever I'm going through. That changes you completely. Like, you start to open up more, and you start to be like, okay, these people are actually here for me. Like, my mentors are actually my mentors for a reason. And that's something that I think that you find a good mentor, and it can honestly change your life. It really can. And then once you have that good mentorship and you have that good spiritual leadership, and once you start having that, then that's going to lead into actually building healthy relationships. Because that might not even be like building healthy relationships just with your actual friends and like the people that you actually do your walk with. That can be actually improving your relationship with your kids, your wife, family that you've never talked to before. Because it all starts, at the end of the day, this podcast is for men who want to get better at the end of the day, who want to follow God's word. Whenever you start being held accountable, being able to spiritually grow, your relationships, I promise you, will change in every single aspect of your life. Like, your relationship with your wife will get better, because now you see how elders, how the pastor, and how everyone treats their wife, and how a godly man treats his wife. And you're like, man, I should really take notes. Like, I'm not doing that. What am I doing wrong? And I think that's something that, if you want a healthy relationship, fix yourself first, and then get with the right people as your friends, and then you will start to get better in your actual personal life as well.
Yeah, and talking about strengthening your faith, I mean, you have to have a strong faith in order to have God change your heart, change who you are. And how do you get a strong faith? Well, the Bible says that God draws you. He draws you, and that's how you come to God. But you need strong Christian men to help you in that.
Absolutely. I think that, because I know whenever I first started off, and I told you about it, I told you about the journey that I wanted to go on in becoming a chaplain in the military. The very first thing that you said was like, hey, you should really start reading this book in the Bible, and it would actually help you out. And then once I started talking to Pastor Rob, and I was telling him about it, he was also like, hey, you should also look at this as well. So I think it's great that you were able to get that guidance from people. You need that, like, because you're going to be lost. If you're not a Christian beforehand and then you become a Christian, this is a big book. It's chronologically not in order. It's kind of like messy sometimes. And so if you try to read it like left to right, you're going to be like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. So it's actually really nice to have people that have read the book, know the word. So you'd be like, hey, read this. Tell me what you think. And then we can discuss it more. And let's just see what the overall aspect of that book is that you liked.
One thing that reminded me of something as you were saying that is, at the very end of Luke, there is right before Jesus ascends to heaven, mm-hmm. He said to it doesn't say he said to his disciples, but it says, and he opened up their minds so that they could understand the scriptures. I don't think anybody that reads the Bible gets more confused the longer they read it.
Oh, yeah.
They get less confused. I know, because I did it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like we were talking about before, I couldn't tell you. I maybe could say Genesis, Revelation, John, maybe something at Leviticus or something.
Yeah.
I didn't know any other books or what they were about or anything just a few short months ago. And I read that verse, and as I started getting convicted by the Holy Spirit, I started saying, I saw that quote by Jesus, and I'm like, he opened up their minds. It's done.
Yeah.
He opened up their mind to understand. And I've heard some people who have said things like, I would read this more, but I don't understand. It's like, no, you don't understand because you don't have faith that you understand.
Yep.
So you need somebody, like a good, strong Christian friend,
Yeah.
a brother, to say, no. You understand. Just believe.
Yeah. Like, hey, what you're going through, like, this is just a season. This too shall pass.
Mm-hmm.
You think your life's going horrible. You think your life's going not the way you want. This too shall pass. You think that your life is amazing. You think nothing can stop me. This too shall pass as well. So I think that it's great to have someone that's going to keep you grounded, but still help you elevate. I think that once you have in your actual friendship and you have like that healthy relationship with your Christian friends, you have the love between the guys, the trust, and then the support is what you truly need for it. You just want to feel like, hey, if I have problems, like they're there to help. They're there to help me in an instant. They'll drop everything, like, hey man, what do you need? We got you. But I think one of the great verses that I took from this as well, it's Ecclesiastes chapter 4 verses 9 through 10. And it says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them. Like that right there just signifies that you need to have a great friendship, or that not even speaking in a friendship perspective now, just because I know last week we used the same verse as well because we were talking about it in the wife as a sense of the wife. But you can also use it as a sense of as a great friend as well. Because if I'm ever feeling down or like, hey man, like I don't know what's up, like I'm just not feeling like God's word. I'm just not. I don't know. Like I'd be like, hey Chris, like we just need to talk a little bit. And I know right then you'd be like, all right, yeah, come on over. Let's just talk about it. I think that's something that we should truly, truly try to find as we continue our walk in our faith and we try to continue our spiritual journey, is finding the great friends that'll keep you spiritually supportive and be able to help you out in your journey. 100%.
Yeah, 100%. And we shouldn't be a stumbling block for people.
Nope.
And that's pretty hard to do, considering that we're all broken people. We all fall short of the glory of God. We've all sinned. We know God. We don't have favor in God. We have favor through Jesus, through his shed blood. But we have to be able to help each other. It says right here, they need because we do that because they have a good return on their labor, right? Two are better than one. Think about what we're doing today. We're bringing a bunch of stuff up and down the stairs, and it's like, well, yeah, if you got a bunch of people, it's gonna go a lot better and a lot faster. And you put two heads together, it's gonna be a lot better. And if you put two heads together that are in the spirit instead of in the flesh, that's also
I know, like, and beforehand, I know we do it every time before we start this podcast, is that we spend about 20, 30 minutes talking about, like, hey, how do you feel about this? Like, do you think anything should change? And now we had two. We added Logan, the smart guy, and we asked him, like, hey, man, what do you think? What do you think about this? And he was like, oh, well, I think you should actually change it because it's stronger. And it was right. It sounded better. It looked better. So once you start to get same-minded people, you're able to actually help elevate each other. And then I think people actually catch on to it as well, like other people outside of the friendship who might not be like, man, I want that kind of friendship as well. Like I want to be just like that. I want to have those friends that like have my back no matter what and will be there for me. Because once you go into that, so you've got starting off, you had your spiritual leadership and mentorship. Then you have building healthy relationships. The next key thing that I think is one of the most important things is the accountability and growth that comes in that friendship now. Because once you have that growth and that accountability that, hey, you're doing something wrong, fix it. Like, it might be one of those things like, hey, buddy, we were on the same ship, hypothetically in the same port. I know you're married. I don't think that's a smart thing. And that's something that's huge, but not in the aspect of just like everyday purpose, but like that's the accountability that you want with your friends. I think one of the best verses that go with this is that for Proverbs 27:6, it says, wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Like, if you let that sit in for a second, Like, it's true. Like, your friends should be able to tell you the truth, and you'd be like, dang, man, that hurt, but I really do appreciate it because you're being honest with me. You're being 100%, like, you're not lying, like, you're going to hold me accountable to it.
Yeah, you have to be able to say the truth to somebody, whether it is offensive or not. And maybe sometimes, I think in our culture, especially in this generation, as we're going, it's a little more passive aggressive in nature.
Oh, 100% it is now.
So the passive aggressiveness will somehow hinder our ability to communicate, because instead of me telling you something that I'm feeling, I just kind of
Beat around the bush
I beat
about
around
it.
the bush. Well, not me, but
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know that's not you at all. No, but it is how we are as a society. Like, we walk on eggshells nowadays because it is like the canceled culture and everything along with that. Like, you got to make sure you say the right thing, but you say it to where you don't offend a certain group or you don't offend the actual person, but the actual person still gets the message. And it's just like, because I know in the military, we have to be super careful of that. Like, I'm very much so of like, I don't beat around the bush. Like, if you did wrong, you did wrong. That's it. Like, let's talk about it. But nowadays it's shifting to be like, well, you don't want to be too mean to them. You still want them to know that what they did wrong, but still like put it on them easy. It's like, how are we going to do that like every single time? Like, if you keep on doing that, by the fifth time, they're like, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and have this talk. I already know what you're going to say to me. Like, at some time you gotta lay down the foot, like, yo, buddy, I don't know what to do with you anymore. You messed up completely. What are you doing? So it's just something that I think as Christian men, we're going to struggle with, just continuing throughout till Jesus comes back. We're going to continue to struggle with that, because in this society, you have to walk on eggshells, because now you may lose your job, and then now you and your family are homeless, type almost to that level.
Yeah, and let's just name all the groups we're going to offend. It's going, no, it's just kidding.
We're just kidding. No. So I think that this is one of the topics that are just, it's touchy, because you don't want to offend people, because I think at the end of the day, like, what you do, like, it won't offend me. Like, whatever your sexuality is, whatever your pronouns are, that it doesn't matter to me. Like, I may not believe it. I'm taking it there. Like, it's gonna have to be there. Like, I may not believe in it, but I'm not gonna let that judge me on how you are as a person. Like, if you're still a great person, like, you're still super nice, you're still like very supportive and everything, like, that's not gonna hinder me. Like, I may not believe in what you do, but I'm still not gonna judge you for it at all.
The hard thing is that you're commanded to love everybody.
Absolutely.
But you're also called to admonish people when they are doing wrong. So you're like, well, how do I love somebody and tell them that they're doing something wrong at the same time? Because if they're so easily offended that when I say words that are true, it's going to offend them.
Yeah.
Well, you have to ask the question, well, if you're not going to get the truth at the church, where are you going to get it?
Absolutely. No, you're right. I think, so another one that I found was Galatians, and that was chapter 6, verses 1 through 2. And it says, brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently, but watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ.
There's some power in that
Oh, yeah.
statement. Because Paul's writing to these Galatians who were duped by false believers and infiltrated by Judaizers that came in and just were preaching a whole different gospel of salvation through the grace of God, a gift from God. They came in and they were saying, no, you got to go back to circumcision, and it matters about the food you eat.
Yep.
And of course, Paul is confronting Peter head on.
Yep.
Right? He confronted Peter head on. We're talking about the Peter.
In Antioch.
Yeah, and when he confronts Peter, it really lends credibility to Paul. And he says to do it gently, right? He says, do it gently if somebody's caught in sin. You who live by the Spirit. So I think a lot of times people think that, well, if we are living in the Spirit, the way that we live in the Spirit is deny the flesh. I don't remember if we talked about that last time.
I think we did. I think we may have skimmed over it a little bit.
But if you're living in you don't deny the flesh so that you can live in the spirit.
Yeah,
You live in the spirit, so it's really easy to deny the flesh.
absolutely. I think I actually love that verse because it's basically saying also that if you see someone committing sin and you just turn that eye, you're like, I didn't see it happening. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. You're now just as guilty as them because you didn't say, hey, buddy, you're wrong for that. Or, hey, let's talk about this type style in a way. Like, it doesn't have to be awkward like that the way I just made it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is that.
That's
Like,
usually how it goes.
yeah, it's like, hey, we should talk about that. But I think it is just like if I see you doing something, it's like, that's not right. Like, we are called to be like, hey, fix that. If you're trying to be who you say you are, that you preach who you say you are on Sunday, why doesn't Monday through Saturday show it as well? I think that's a big thing as well.
You can fall short,
Absolutely.
right? And you can mess up. I do it all the time, especially where I'm like, you know what, I'm going and I'm doing the Bible study that we're doing. I'm writing papers for school, and I'm coming to church, and I'm teaching this stuff, and then I go and I fall down flat on my face, and I go, I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah.
And we know how Jesus felt about hypocrites. He was not a fan. But the beauty is God's forgiveness.
Yep.
Because he forgives us. So if you have issues with, speaking of the topic, when we talk about friends, in men, we kind of tend to, it's a little hard to forgive, I think.
Yeah, I think it's that internal. Like, I think that if you're still, like, if you guys aren't as close as what you think you are, like, in your head, you're like, man, I think we're pretty close to where I can actually say something to you, but then it actually rubs you wrong, then you weren't really as close as what you think you were, I think. Now, if
How many times does Jesus command us to forgive? He says
70 times 7. Yep.
So you can do the math. I mean, we need somebody smarter for us.
Smart guy.
Yeah, to do that. But that's a lot of times.
Yeah.
But it's to indicate, look, you're going to mess up.
Yeah.
You're going to falter.
You're going to fall short.
You are going to fall short. But if you're falling short of God, imagine what you're doing with each other.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I think just at the end of the day, like, you have to, if you truly want to have a spiritual walk and a journey that you can be truly proud of and be able to say, like, hey, like, this is where I want to be, this is who I want to become, you got to have those friends that's going to keep you accountable, that's going to say, hey, your actions aren't showing it. And it's one of those things, like, I know that I had a good buddy who was like, who's very on social media, he's very, like, God first, but then, like, the actions aren't there, like, and I'm not saying, like, not to harp on the guy, but it's like the actions aren't there, the music's not there, it's just like everything goes into it. Like, it's not just, oh, hey, what people can see. Like, now it's the actions as well. Like, what are you listening to? Like, listening to certain songs, like I'm guilty of that too, because last year I was telling, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, I believe in God and everything, but you go to my playlist and that bad boy is like every curse word you could think of. And like now, and I know we talked about it before, I was like, now that like our journey has gone where it is, you listen to like that song and you're like, man, like, what was I doing? Like, that's a pretty graphic song. And then now that you have kids as well, it's just one of those things, like, I don't want my kids to listen to that either, like, because now they'll be fed of the world and not of the word. So that's something that we have to be very, very careful on as Christian men as well.
There's a difference between sin and living in sin.
Yeah.
And I promise you, if you have a strong conscience,
Mm-hmm.
which God clearly gave us, you will, if you're ensconced in sin, and it's a particular sin that's the same.
Yeah.
For me, right, one of my biggest struggles in my whole life was pornography.
Mm-hmm.
I struggled with this really hard. It was just an addiction, like anything else. I was a smoker.
Yeah.
You name it, you name the sin, I've been doing
yeah.
it. I mean, not to mention Jesus says, you know, if you've committed one sin, you've done them all.
Yeah.
But I really struggled with that, and that was living in sin.
Yeah.
Right? We're all gonna sin, right? It's that change in your heart is a turn away from that sin.
Absolutely. And then I think, well, I appreciate you sharing that because that's something deep as well. But I think,
Kids.
yeah, but I think that nowadays, like, we can start addressing it. Like, I know we're talking about it as men, like over 18 and everything, but it truly does start as teenagers, as middle schoolers, like going to pornography and stuff like that. It's so easy nowadays. One phone, a computer, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And now we can get into like the specifics of it, but once you start looking at pornography, now your whole mindset is shifted to what something that's a commitment between you and your wife or you and your partner. Like now you're basing it off what you just saw. So now it's like this big old thing. It's we can go into that, but we're not going to though. But I think this is one of those.
Whole episode.
Yeah, that's a whole episode. We can go into that, but I think this is one of those things like your actions have to speak what you're saying to people and what you're trying to achieve with your walk and what you're trying to say and what you want to do. If your actions aren't showing it, you got to have that good friend to be like, buddy, you're wrong. Mm-hmm. And if you still take that as an insult and you're like, man, you're wrong. I know what I'm doing. You need to take a good look in the mirror because that's all it is. You got to have that good friend that'll hold you accountable.
Every day is a victory. If you have a little victory, Absolutely. If you have a friend that says, hey, just like you're saying, hey, you shouldn't be doing this, man. Well, my answer might be, I know, but I just can't stop.
Yeah.
Right? That's like addiction. But if you make it, let's say you make it, and it doesn't have to be, it can be anything.
Yeah.
Right? You're doing
smoking, alcohol.
Smoking, alcohol.
You go day by day, like, hey, you can be like, hey, man, did you smoke a cigarette today? No, I didn't. Hey, one day down, man. Mm-hmm. And then it's just like that accountability. Like, second day, hey, man, third day, 4 day, 5 day, 6 day.
Because you don't want to break it the longer you go.
Yeah.
The longer you succeed, the harder it's going to be to accept when you give in.
No,
whatever it is.
You could still fall on your face, and you can give on the 3-year mark and be like, okay, it's okay. Well, let's restart our timer. We'll go again.
That's right.
I think speaking of addictions and speaking of just everything that's going on in our society, I think that leads into our final topic, which is navigating the challenges and temptations. And one of the good verses that I found for this one was Matthew 26:41 and Romans 12:21, but we'll do Matthew first. And it says, watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And then Romans 12:21, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. I know it's how you were saying that the flesh is weak, but your spirit can be strong. Mm-hmm. And I think that just, maybe you read ahead. Maybe that's why I used that verse. Yeah. Trying to get some brownie points or something. But that's perfect though. I mean, like if your faith with God is strong and it's very, very, very strong, like the sins and the temptations will be easy. Like, oh no, I don't need that. Why do I need that today? Mm-hmm. Like I don't need a cigarette. I don't need to look at porn. I don't need to look at XYZ. Like I'm good. What can I do besides that?
Some things are not addictions. Like sometimes you just sin, you get angry, and you just yell at somebody.
Yeah.
And that's not even something you were trying to do.
Quick to anger.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest thing for me is that, and it's not even like anger towards like people I know. It's like random people, like road rage or just like people just act crazy. I truly, this is the biggest pet peeve besides like someone chewing with their mouth open. That disturbs me. But I hate the way like two strangers interact and then like one person's rude to the other person for no reason. Like it could just be like me just talking to an old lady and then like some guy just walks in, just barges in between us and then just like pushes the old lady aside. Something crazy like that. It's like, dude, like I don't know what's going on today and you might have been having a bad day, but like why are you trying to like just bring that negative energy and this negativity just around us completely?
Yeah, the big quote here is temptation.
Yeah.
And when I think about temptation, I think about how when Jesus came to the earth, he had every human emotion. We talked about it today. He had everything that could have happened to him as a human happen to him.
Yeah.
And he had that stuff happen to him, and he went through all of this stuff so that when you put your trust in him, right, you don't just say, well, I believe in God because of whatever. You say, no. He understands exactly what I'm going through because he did it.
Absolutely.
He flipped over tables in the temple courts because he was angry. He made whips out of cords. He got hungry. He got tired. He wept.
Yeah.
Right? But temptation. he was tempted. Temptation is not sin.
Yep.
The devil tempted Jesus in the wilderness.
Yeah. Whenever
Right?
whenever he said turn the rock into bread, and then jump off the cliff, and then the angels will save you. Like he's like, no. Is it that?
And he always quoted scripture.
Yeah.
Right? He always brought it back to scripture. And Jesus was saying in that, he said, I'm pretty sure he said, if not, this can make it to the outtakes, but preemptively.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he said, don't put your God to the test.
Yeah.
You're trying to test me? It's like, well, we know God doesn't tempt,
Yeah.
right? God tests. It's only the devil that tempts. And if you go all the way back to the Old Testament, you've got Abraham, who you might say, oh, well, no. He was tempted by God when he said to sacrifice. He said, no. He was tested. Put him to a test. To test what? His faith.
Yeah. I think with the society that we live in nowadays, it's going to be hard for us as Christians to be able to. I wouldn't say it's going to be hard for us to do it, because we'll still do it, but we're going to be persecuted for it. It's just one of those things that I think me and my wife talked about, that at the end of the day, like, although there more than likely will come a day where we might have to die knowing that we're Christians, and we're perfectly fine with that. Because then that's because at the end of the day, you could say, hey, I held true to what I believe in, to what I said I would do, so there was nothing that can change that at all. But I think it's just, with our society the way it is now, it just gets hard to, just because there's a lot more feelings involved, and you just want to make sure that you're going to walk on eggshells pretty much for the rest of your life, unfortunately. But I think that if you're true in what you say and you hold it firm, then I think that's what people can expect from you as well. So I think it won't be that bad in a way.
And you can't be worldly. It's in the Bible somewhere, not to be worldly. I don't know I can't remember exactly where, but don't be worldly.
Don't worry, we got our tech guy for that.
Yeah, we'll add in the quotes at the end, the verses or whatnot.
No, it's just because I know. Speaking of this, like, this is one of the topics I really wanted to do, and I know that you were definitely okay with it. I think doing this journey alone, you can do it. It's definitely achievable. People have done it before, and they've had probably success as well. But I think once you have the friendship and the actual good mentorship, I feel like it will help not accelerate, but it will help you feel like you can achieve anything, and it will help you become more of a Christian man than what you thought was possible. Because I think we're the prime examples as well. Like in our scenario, like 6 months ago, like you said, you were addicted to pornography. Now 6 months later, you're a youth director at a church. 3 or 4 months ago for me, like I wasn't doing anything right. Like my marriage was falling apart. I just wasn't living in the Word. And then I was talking to Chaps one day, and I had a calling. I swear, Jesus in the back said to ministry, and chaplain in the back of my head, and I was like, all right. And now we're both in Liberty getting our degrees and everything. So it's great to see things, and now just to see how much God has moved in us, and being able to surround us with the right people, and be able to put things in our life that we didn't think was possible before. Like, I think that's one of the best things that I could say that's happened to me in my life so far.
Yeah, amen. I was when I got that call to ministry from God, I said, "Are you sure?" Or because
Are we sure about this?
Are we sure about that? Because I'm not so sure. And we're working up here with students, 6th to 12th grade students. It's a little different.
I think
a little vibe to it.
Yeah, so I think whenever I thought of it, or whenever I thought about doing youth, I was like, oh, like, that's not a big deal. But I think once you take a step back and you really do think about it, like, you have a chance to shape their lives in a way. Like, you can actually imprint on them, and that sounds weird to say, imprint on them. Nah, that's weird. You can actually be able to change their aspect of, like, their faith. Like, man, like, I didn't think about it like that. Like, hey, I wasn't really a believer before, but your sermon actually touched me. And that's something, like, I think if that ever happens to me, like, I'll probably shed a tear in the back or something, because, like, that's something that, like, it's like your kid's first steps, or your kid riding the bike for the first time. Like, as youth leaders, that's something that you want to happen. Or, like, they come up to you, like, hey, would you baptize me? They'd be like, whoa, like, you think that much of me? Like, I really do appreciate it. Like, that speaks volumes. So, yeah. That's what I think. Tough act to follow up, I know.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to love these kids to do it.
Yeah.
And I know we're talking about Christian friendships, but in what we do, you've got to love the kids in order to do this. And
Yeah.
if you don't love the kids, you have to love the kids. You can't not love the kids. Because if you don't, then what's going to happen is you're not going to want to be up here.
Yeah.
And it might not happen overnight.
Yeah, no. So I think for someone who is wanting to change their spiritual outlook and be able to begin their walk on the journey, I would say find a church, or find someone who you know is a godly man who follows the book and will be honest with you. I think that would be the very first step, is finding a community, integrating yourself, which is a very big thing. Integrate yourself into that community. And then they're going to be able to hold you accountable and be able to help lead you, be right next to you. And I think that's going to be a tremendous help for you if you are starting off and you want to change your outlook. Because once you bring God into your life, everything around you will look different, smell different. It'll just be a whole different world for you. You'll start to see things, and your relationships will improve tremendously. So that's my spiel. You can close us out, though.
Yeah,
Close us out. That's
Chris.
the mic drop moment.
Close us out. Building a strong Christian friendship. I've never really had a true Christian friend before.
Yeah.
I tend to surround myself with people who are like-minded, which is very normal behavior for somebody to do.
I usually surround myself around sports people because I love sports. So I just be like, hey, you like sports? I like sports. Cool, we're best friends now.
But, following Christ said, you have to be willing to deny thyself and take up your own cross.
Yeah.
For going back to King James, deny thyself.
Ooh.
Right? And take up the cross. So you can't live worldly. You've got to. So if you want not to fall into temptation,
Yeah.
you've almost have to cast out. I wouldn't say you need to abandon the rest of your friends. Just make them Christian.
Yeah.
That's all. Just get them.
Just like, hey,
lead them to Christ.
we're just gonna go ahead and bring you guys to church with us on
And
Sunday.
give them some grace, right?
Yeah.
Give them some grace because we shouldn't be sitting in church going, well, they're not Christian enough because they don't do this.
Yeah.
It's no. Is that who you want? That's all you want?
Mm-hmm.
Or people that are no. Come on in.
Yeah.
And we'll take you in, and Christ will work inside of them.
Absolutely.
And that's how you do it. Is you invite people in.
I think that was a great way to close us out. So that was episode 2.
Episode 2.
That was episode 2, building strong Christian friendships. And then just like last week, we'll see you guys next week, and then
Next time.